But yeah, we've done a lot of different building approaches. We've been doing this for a long time. So whether it's a green roof, rammed earth, mud bricks, timber framing, stonework, we can design buildings with almost any natural building material.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Radical Hospitality Podcast. I'm your host, Zeke Freeman. You may hear my voice is a little squeaky today. I'm working through a cold and a cough, but I didn't want to miss this one. I've got a great episode today with Lewis Thompson. He is the CEO of Nomadic Resort. Lewis and his team designed some of the most forward-thinking eco resorts, safari lodges, floating hotels, and outdoor hospitality experiences in the world. I'm just blown away. Their work is truly amazing. So this is going to be fun to kind of dive into. They're doing bamboo floating resorts in India to tinted camps facing Mount Everest. Lewis has built this career around designing places that are deeply connected to nature while still meeting the expectations of global hospitality brands. He's also been an instrument in shaping sustainability policies at scale. And right now he's working on everything from regenerative farm hotels to digital disconnected retreats. This conversation is all about the sustainable hospitality, what it really looks like when it's done properly, and what the future of outdoor experience-driven lodging might become. So, Lewis, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Zeke. Nice to be here.
Yeah, well, pleasure to meet you. I'm really excited to hear about your work and your background. Why don't you just kind of give us a quick overview of Nomadic Resorts and what you're doing with your design firm, right?
So basically, Nomadic Resorts was founded in 2011. I was working for a company called Six Senses Resorts and Spas at the time. And me and some of the other kind of consultants and guys in the development team felt that there was a real sort of change going on in the hospitality industry, and that there were more unconventional lodging options that needed to be explored a little bit. So I basically sort of rustled up people who I'd worked with and offered them, to get involved. And so we set up Nomadic Resorts in 2011, and we've always been focused on what we occasionally call the glamping sector, which is a kind of name that everyone finds slightly aggravating. But we also do eco resorts, tree houses, bamboo architecture, and tented camps for probably the main hotel companies in the world, really, particularly in this part of the world. So we've worked with kind of all the big ones: Six Senses, Soniva, Jumeirah, Shangri-La, Banyan Tree. And so at the moment we're working on various projects in kind of interesting parts of the world, doing a tiger reserve in the middle of India, in Bandhavgarh. We're doing a floating resort in Kerala. We're doing an eco village, kind of new take on the whole kind of branded residential experience in Turkey. And yeah, we're just quite busy doing a lot of different things, a little bit all over the world.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like, glamping, the name doesn't quite do justice to, some of these unique architectural works, especially some of the things, I'm seeing like you guys do here. It has a very organic feel. A lot of the work that I'm seeing, it looks like it's very rooted in both native, what archetypal design and but it seems pretty modern. Like some of this work that's like I'm looking at the Overwater Restore Maldives, where it's just kind of this floating hotel. Again, how are you approaching your design work for some of these unique styles, unique shapes? Like what's y'all's design philosophy to get to these unique structures?
Okay, so right from the beginning, I got interested in a thing called biophilic design really quite a long time ago now. Actually, like 20 years ago, I read a book by E.O. Wilson, who's an evolutionary biologist, who kind of talked about, man's inherent need to interact with nature. As I sometimes explain, is that, you basically needed to kind of be able to identify key markers in the landscape to survive. So, the guy who went off and looked for mushrooms and didn't take notice of the path probably didn't come back. So, we have this kind of inherent need to kind of navigate our environment. And basically that's now become, a recognized parameter in your mental health, basically. I mean, if you interact with the natural environment on a pretty regular basis, you're probably to some extent kind of protecting yourself from mental health, anxiety, and stress, really. So that's how we kind of got involved in that kind of scientific or neuroscientific approach to design in relation to natural environments. And that kind of led us onto a thing called biomimicry, where we started taking inspiration not only from the way that animals or insects are shaped, but also the way that they perform. So we got into biomimicry, and that's always been a kind of guiding principle. So we always try and find inspiration from the natural environment in the sites where we operate as much as we possibly can. That's gone from caterpillars, cocoons to we're doing a mushroom thing. We've also done a whale house recently. So there's always quite a lot of entertaining subjects for design, really.
Yeah. How does that go with the client? I mean, are they generally, I imagine at this point, they're probably coming to you for that. What did your first client say when you introduced a beetle house or a whale house?
Yeah, that was actually the first one we did. Yeah, though the first one we did was super weird, actually, if I'm honest about it. So as I said, I used to work for this company called Six Senses Resorts and Spas, which was like a kind of fancy luxury hotel brand. And I was in charge of what they called special projects, which makes me sound like a green beret or something, but it was absolutely not the case. It was basically anything that they didn't really know whether anybody else was going to be able to do it, they kind of put on my desk and see what happened. So one day, the boss comes up to me and says that we want to create this kind of treetop dining experience where people can kind of go up into the top of the rainforest canopy and have dinner up there. It's like, just figure it out, find somebody who can do this. So I set up this kind of design competition, and now I'm very anti-design competition. So I kind of regret having done a design competition back in the day. And I kind of sent this invite out to all of the best treehouse designers in the world. And there were some great ones. There's a guy called Dustin Fader, actually, in the States from O2.
Oh yeah, I know Dustin.
Yeah, he's cool. Well, he sent the most amazing proposal. But Olav, my business partner, just sent 2 pages. And he said, I want to do a dining experience inspired by saprophytic fungi growing horizontally out of a tree trunk. And then he did like a little hand sketch, maybe a bit of Photoshop. But it was so cool and so unique that we all just went, yeah, okay. I said, well, so I had to go and present it to the big bosses, and this is the bit where it gets a bit tricky, right? Is that, suddenly I was in a kind of meeting room with, all right, pretty unconventional hospitality people. But this is definitely still kind of, whatever they call it, C-suite executives or whatever they call themselves.
Yeah.
And so I had to say, well, look, we want to do this thing where we basically want to kind of perch this tree. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so we want to build a nest hanging off the top of the tree in the middle of a tropical island.
It's like a little bird nest.
The guys, yeah, but it's on an elevator winch, right? So that basket goes down.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't just like, oh yeah, we're going to build a nest. I would have been perfectly happy to do that. It was like, we're going to build a nest, but we're going to put it on an elevator winch in the middle of the tropical jungle, and the guys would be able to come up and down in it. So, normally this would have been scoffed, well, it would still be scoffed at. Oh yeah, and then of course the waiter arrives with a zip line with a plate. So that's what it looks like. Right? So you can imagine that was a pretty tough sell. Ostensibly it should have been, but they just turned around and said, yeah, okay, let's do it. And so that was the first project Oliver and I did together. Basically, that was it. It was the top bits inspired by fungi, and then of course there's the kind of nest thing. That was also one of our first experiences of working with bamboo together. So yeah, it was a great project.
All right, guys, I've got one quick favor to ask. If you've been enjoying Radical Hospitality, if these conversations have inspired you, encouraged you, or helped you think bigger about what it means to create spaces that truly serve people, would you hit the subscribe button? It's a small thing, but it makes a huge difference for our show and for our team. We're working hard to bring some of the most thoughtful entrepreneurs, builders, and visionaries in hospitality, people creating meaningful spaces all over the world. And your subscription helps us keep getting better every single week. And if you're someone who's dreaming about building a hospitality project of your own, that's what we do at Root Architecture every single day. We help clients design and bring those spaces to life. You can book a discovery call with me or someone on our team at therootteam.com. Thanks so much for being a part of this journey. It really means a lot to me. Subscribe, stay with us, and let's keep building cool stuff that serve people well. Oh, fun. So to figure this thing out, that's a moving basket. This doesn't fit in like the typical like architectural, details and construction. To build, were you involved in, showing up with the craftsmen? Did you have somebody like, oh, this is their specialty that I know he could accomplish this?
No, I built it. I
Oh,
was
built
young
it.
as well at the
Even
time.
better.
Yeah.
It's like you get a wacky idea. You got to take it all the way through.
Olaf designed it. He was there most of the time as well, but I was kind of project manager on site. And so we designed it and we built it. We had a bunch of crazy guys who put cables in all the trees. We had these Thai workmen, from Chiang Mai who were great actually. And then I had to get this was great. I had to get somebody to do a thing called a sonic tomography scan. So it's called Thomas Sonic Tomography scan. I think
the trees or.
Yeah. So basically, it was one of the only guys in Asia who could do it. Actually, we had to X-ray all of the trees that supported the structure because it weighed about 400 kilos.
Yeah.
So we had to get an X-ray of each of the trees that was where this was rigged up. And so that we could check there weren't any kind of fungi or insect attacks. And then I had to present those X-rays to the insurance guy whilst having breakfast with him and his family in the pod. Unbelievably, I mean, this will give away my age a bit, but this has been operating now for 15 years.
And it hasn't dropped anybody yet.
Hasn't dropped anybody yet, and
do you
they're
have
still
like a
charging
standard, like you go in and replace cables after so many years. I mean, it's a living.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
No, it was actually, I make it sound like a joke, but actually, it was a huge amount of responsibility associated with this, and a lot of liability, insurance, engineering. Because you don't realize it, but actually, there's 8 trees, and they all move slightly different according to their species and density. So yeah, it's joking aside, it's a highly engineered, quite technical thing.
Yeah, I don't think people realize like how much go into doing treehouse design. So we built one here in Colorado, which is highly regulated. Their minds were like blown that we're going to do something that was connected to the trees, and then we're in a very high fire danger issue. And typically when we set a house down, we clear out all the trees for 30 feet, and in this case, we're putting, a $500,000 tree, house inside of a tree. And, how are you going to get it funded? How are you going to get insurance on that? And lots of little, steps and nuances to make sure that those things are done correctly. It doesn't quite go the way that it does in Swiss Family Robinsons, So this is really fun though. It takes someone with some like boldness and courage to like step in and do that. And it can be figured out. So I love this. I know when we had Dustin on, we talked to him. He does a similar thing where he's actually suspending from the trees. A lot of tree houses, either anchor to the tree or, we'll just cheat and we'll come down with some steel posts. And that's what we did. I've never heard of scanning the trees for the health of them, but that makes a lot of sense. Did this then teach you something that you took to your other future projects? Had you not done a smaller start like this?
Yeah. What did it teach me? It taught me one thing that was kind of interesting. was that actually people were kind of interested in this. So it was on everything. It was on Newsweek magazine. It was on CNN. It was on all the kind of major hospitality publications. It was absolutely. I often joke about it, saying that the cost of the thing was insignificant compared to the PR value, where you had every Tom, Dick, and Harry, and people coming specifically to do their, what do you call it, fiancé and stuff like that. So yeah, it taught me that what I call unconventional hospitality had like a real potential. I think that was the most important thing, and that included the kind of high end luxury end of the market.
Yeah. So did this, let's say you started here, I'm sure this led to some other commissions of people seeing, this small unique treehouse. Where did you go from that project to kind of the next, project or two?
Well, next, if you scroll down a little bit, I can show you. Yeah, the next project was a big step up. It's that one there, Wild Coast Tented. That's the kids' den. So that Olav designed at the same project. So once we finished the treetop dining pod, we decided it might be a good time to make a giant manta ray. Yeah, you can see it's a fancy place, right? It was it's a pretty fancy place. So this really credit to Olav. He turned up, as 26-year-old architect. And he designed this, engineered it with Arab, and then came and built it in the middle of nowhere with a team of, speaking no Thai, with a team of hill tribesmen from the Karan from Chiang Rai. And he came along and he built that.
Oh, super fun.
Much to everybody's surprise, I might add.
Yeah, that's amazing. So who was this other guy that came along, and what's your role, Louis? Are you architect or builder or both?
A bit of both. I mean, I've got a bit of a kind of weird trajectory because I'm a hospitality guy because I studied hospitality, and then I got a job. I was also doing permaculture design and landscape architecture, and through a very weird twist of fate, I went to work in a luxury resort called Sonavagili in the Maldives, and I was supposed to be just doing a vegetable garden. And then the tsunami hit the island, everything got wiped out. And then they asked me to do a kind of regenerative landscaping thing. So I kind of got roped into this quite almost by accident. So, it was basically, we were kind of in a tsunami, everything got wiped out. They needed somebody to redo the resort landscape. And then I spent the next 10 years doing that. 20 years now.
And through that process, you were kind of designing and building each of these components and structures around the resort. And again, what was the name of the gentleman that came in and helped with this project?
Oh, no, he's my business partner. We've been working together 20 years, and he's the kind of creative genius behind this whole thing. He's called Olav Brun, who's the creative director of Nomadic Resorts, our company.
Okay.
And
so
we've been
you two are
partners
partners
for a very long time. Yeah.
In Nomadic Resorts. And so that kind of started the partnership, was this project where you guys came in and worked together?
Yeah, we kind of figured that it would be hard to find anybody else crazy enough to have to do this kind of thing. So we got together, and then shortly after this, we set up Nomadic Resorts, because at this time Nomadic Resorts didn't exist, and we designed and built Wild Coast Tented Lodge, which was a little bit our kind of pièce de résistance, as we say in French, which is, so that was a big project. And that was the first one. Imagine they gave us to design this and build it as a startup. So that says a lot about the owners. So we started Nomadic Resorts in 2012, and we were kind of, took us a bit of time to get off the ground. And then 2013, we started negotiating this project, and we did the master planning, the architecture design, the landscape design, the interior design with our friend Bo Riddler. And then we set up a construction company in Sri Lanka, recruited half the village of fishermen, and built it.
Love it. Oh, what a story, man. So, all right. So two crazy kids, they come in, they're designing and building these wacky things, that are quite beautiful, for a client. And then you guys at this point decided to launch your own thing with the Wild Coast. What did that process look like? Were you still working with partners? Did you raise capital? Did you go,
No,
uh,
no,
buy
we
land?
never really had any money.
No money.
Um, no, I started the company with $10,000 I borrowed from my mum.
Thank God for
So
moms.
yeah, she still haven't paid it back. I hope she's not listening. Um,
You better give her a free
so
stage or something. It's
no, she's had a few perks, no doubt. So basically, yeah, it was very, very kind of bootstrapped to say the least. But we convinced these guys to build this, from a hand sketch. There's one image where you see it from the sea, and it's like you can kind of see those two structures from the beach.
yeah,
And we did a hand sketch of that, and we presented it to them, and that's where we designed it, literally like that.
right there.
And
Okay.
the sketch was exactly that. There was a kind of eerie silence that lasted much longer than you'd hope normally.
Yeah,
And
it
I
kind of
thought we might have
mimics
screwed.
the rocks that it's
Yeah.
sitting into. Yeah.
So that was it. So we said, like, you can have a termite mound, you have a big boulder, we need something in the middle. And that was basically the pitch.
No, I
And there
love
was this eerie silence. And then the guy just turned around and said, yeah, let's do it. And,
it.
invested, $13 million in the project. So yeah, it was not, and also we'd already designed the tents. So the tents were actually a product that we'd already developed, the Looper tents.
Okay.
Um,
And so those became
so
kind of the repetitive housing structures that
yeah,
sit around.
yeah, the resort accommodation. And we
Mhm. How
still sell
many
those to
units?
people now.
So those are a product essentially that you guys developed, the tents that are
Yeah,
on the site.
yeah,
How many
yeah.
of
We
those did you put
built
on the site?
on that site. We put 28
Okay.
loopers and 8
Lupus.
urchins. Loopers are the name. It's the name of a caterpillar because it was inspired by the cocoon of a caterpillar.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's a kind of 45 square meter hotel room. It's prefabricated. There's some information on the website about them. So we've done them. We spent 10 years pitching a tent, which is, I think, a record. But it's a kind of quite a sophisticated piece of kit. It's not completely ridiculous once you hear the whole story. But basically, so then we built 28 of them. We built 8 of the urchin pods, and then more recently we built another 34 in Athens, and now we've got lots of people kind of
Yeah,
wanting
yeah.
to get
So
hold of them.
did they have the product that you already had developed with these creature tents help? co- Like, did you have those built anywhere else? Were those part of the, hey, we're not just crazy guys. Like we've got these things developed that we can, that work and we can create a resort out of them.
No, we didn't. No, it was completely made up. I just had a
Oh,
really bad render image. So that was the first step was to get them to finance the mock-up. So
okay.
that took quite a long time and quite a lot of effort. And you don't realize it, but that's a long way from anywhere. I mean, right, Sri Lanka's already pretty far out. That's 6 hours drive south of Colombo on the edge of the national park, where there's like elephants, crocodiles, sloth bears, leopards, all sorts of stuff wandering
Oh,
around.
wow.
So it was, and we lived there for, I lived there for kind of 2 years in the fishing village just at the far end there. Yeah, so it was not an easy project. Um, but the
Here's what
local,
people
the
don't
local community
realize.
were amazing.
I don't think people realize, like, the beauty of creativity is that you honestly, you know, anything good was just made up and you can just make things up, and go out and create them in the world. I think this is like such a great, example of that, of not, you know, waiting for permission, but, and just doing it. Um, I really love
That
that.
bring
It's beautiful.
that brings us on to a very different scenario, which
Okay.
was then during COVID, that one. So most of the time it was me trying to pitch kind of crazy, far out ideas to people who had some reservations about it. Whereas then David Leventhal contacted us And he was like, can you do a resort, like a whole kind of new room category of manta ray inspired tree houses jumping out of the jungle to try and get back to the ocean? And we were like, yeah, sure. As it happens, we've done a bamboo manta ray before.
See, you're crazy until you're not, and then you're a genius, and then all the crazies come out of the woodworks to help fund your next project. So yeah.
No, David is definitely not crazy. David is super smart. So what he had understood, and I think this is really important for like hospitality people out there, is he just knew what his clientele was after. He'd already built a really cool treehouse on the site, which had been fabulously popular. And we were like, we constantly had to try and convince people not to put air conditioning in. He was like, I don't want air conditioning. This is a zero carbon regenerative project. We don't have the electricity. It's got to be naturally ventilated. And so that was one of the only times we were literally like, okay, all right, man, we'll do what you want. I mean, he was the one kind of pushing some of the more adventurous parts of the program, really.
So I get a lot of clients that come to me now, and they're like, "Hey, we want to do 10 oud houses." I'm like, "Well, that's great. It's already been something that's designed." How are you taking people through the process of saying, "Hey, let's do something that's a little bit more speaks to the land, pulls from the area, that comes up with unique creative structures versus, it's cool that you have a set, design that can be used, and that's fine, but the ability to also inspire, what makes a hospitality stay better, I think tends to be something that's a little bit more, you know, unique in its own brand, unique in its own stay. Like what does that conversation look like to pull that out of your clients?
Yeah. I mean, do you know about anything about hypnosis?
No, but do I need to learn?
No, I'm only joking. But I mean, no, basically, I think there's two things happening in kind of parallel here. One of them was the kind of realization that these kind of slightly far out ideas were not necessarily significantly more expensive than a conventional build. That's one thing. And that's, you have to kind of try and get somebody over the line on that and say, hey, this might actually cost the same as it would if you were building a Marriott Courtyard,
Yeah.
which they wouldn't ask us to do, by the way. So, so that's one thing, is to say, okay, well, look, it's not necessarily going to cost you more money. It's not necessarily going to take you any longer. And then the other thing is basically what we call alternative lodging or experiential hospitality, or like people going to stay somewhere to have a specific experience. So for example, if you take that room there where that lovely lady is,
Mhm.
one of the main writers of Travel and Leisure had a kind of awesome experience of a lunar eclipse on that hammock, and wrote like a massive article about it, which was, again, a huge thing. So there's this kind of two things kind of going in the direction. One is traditional construction is going up in price. Unconventional construction is kind of going a little bit down, not dramatically. And then particularly the kind of new generation of travelers are looking for experiences, which, however much we might despise the notion of social media, is that does play a role, right? This kind of Instagrammable whatever
Mhm.
does have an impact. Whether you like it or not, I don't know how many kind of selfies have been taken of people hanging out there and sort of showing off and whatever. It's not really my bag, but it is important. And we see some of you've got some guys in the US working on some of these concepts. I've seen,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
who are
And
doing some interesting
are you
stuff.
guys, like, how much do you dig into the number? Do you rely on your partners to do that? And, I mean, other than just like a general, hey, we may be able to push up a higher ADR if we do something unique, or do you guys actually dig into comparables and performas and, you know, try to underwrite
Yeah, I
some of
mean,
these things.
as I say, I've worked for big hotel companies and done financial projections for $50 million resorts. So I'm pretty familiar with
Yeah,
the, I'm not saying I'm an expert in hospitality finance, God forbid, but I mean, I do understand how the thing's calculated out and development cost per key. I mean, to give you an idea, I read something from a reasonably reliable source recently that in the US, if you want to build a luxury resort in the US, um, you're looking at about $1 million development cost per key. Okay. That's really a lot of money.
could be. Yeah.
That a development cost per key is all
Yeah.
of the infrastructure divided by the number of rooms. So it's not like this room cost $1 million. It's like the restaurant, the spa, the
Sure.
back of the house, infrastructure, and energy, whatever. But that is a lot of money, right? And in some places it's even more. Like the Maldives, it's getting to the point where it's more than that. So
Yeah.
let's say you take something like this. I mean, obviously it's a good photo. So this is inspired by a pink whip ray, which is a kind of type of ray that lives in the lagoons in the Maldives. So we kind of took that as our inspiration, and then Olav did something really incredible where he did a very interesting beam structure using bamboo that had never really been done before. But at the end of the day, had you built any kind of restaurant over water in the Maldives, that was going to cost you a lot of money. So at some point, things kind of dovetail into each other, and you kind of end up sort of working in commercial reality, even though it doesn't appear to be so. If you understand what I mean, it's a
Yeah.
little bit like smokes and mirrors, where someone go, "Oh my God, how much did it cost you to build that?" And I could say a number, right? But if you were to build something else there, a block house, concrete block, I think it would have been very little difference actually in the price, in the cost of construction. So there's that kind of consideration. And then there's lots of other things, it's guest experiences, it's word of mouth, it's, you know, marketing and PR and all that stuff.
And the world honestly has enough, white boxes. It doesn't have enough,
Yeah.
giant, sea urchins coming out over the ocean. I think people need more, unique and thoughtful experiences. If,
I think in the US as well. I
yeah,
think
yeah.
there's huge potential. So
Eh,
we're launching a concept in the US called Nomadic Escapes. So
Well,
we
this is what
want
I
to
want to, before
develop.
you go there, Lewis, I want to ask about this. Like, coming to the US, do you think this unique construction type it can only be done in areas is it work, I guess, better or only can be done in areas of the world where you have that type of, mass labor force that's a little bit cheaper, or can you make this work in the US, and how should we approach it, here differently?
Okay, so what we do, people think we just use bamboo. We just happen to work in places where bamboo is a very common building material, and
Hmm.
Olav happens to be one of the leading architects in bamboo. But we're not partisans to any specific building methodology, right? I think people sometimes misunderstand this, is that we can design buildings with almost any natural building material. We've been doing this for a long time. So whether it's a green roof, rammed earth, mud bricks, timber framing, stonework. Actually, the one that I haven't done that I'd like to do is super adobe, the sandbag construction. That I would love to do. But yeah, we've done a lot of different building approaches over the years. And so if we were to do a project in the US, we're not going to say, hey, bring over a bunch of Thai guys to build a bamboo manta ray, because that probably wouldn't be appropriate. What we'd probably do is do a little bit of a dig into the vernacular architecture, and then do a bit of research on, local building materials, availability of local skills, historically important or cultural experiences. Like, for example, let's take Hogan, or Native American Indians, construction methodologies. We'd probably do a kind of deep dive on that. And then what we do is we don't just copy them. We then kind of tweak them. So we call it a tweak, which is where you say, okay, well, these guys built like that using this passive design approach because the climate's like that and the materials were there. Can we do something a little bit different with that using a similar approach? That's really how we do it. It's like taking vernacular architecture and traditional craftsmanship and then reinterpreting it with a bit of a contemporary edge.
So when you're coming over to the U.S., are you also bringing your construction branch over here as well, or would you guys just do design, or what's kind of the approach?
No, no. So basically, as I say, we're quite we have a lot of experience doing tensile membrane architecture,
Hmm.
which is a fancy way of saying we build tents. But we build kind of fancy tents, I suppose is probably the easiest way of saying it. So those are prefabricated and they can be shipped and stored on site with very little environmental impact. And, in a lot of places, you don't even really need planning permission because technically it's a tent, even if it lasts 30 years, is air conditioned, lockable, and has a kind of claw-tooth bathtub in the middle. It's still technically a tent. So we're interested in doing tented camps in the US, really, in kind of unique locations where people are interested in kind of renegade lifestyles of adventure sports activities.
Hmm.
We're looking for the wild ones, and we think there's a lot of kind of scope for that kind of activity in the US in places like Joshua Tree, for example, or Pacific Northwest. Utah, we loved. We did a project in Utah a couple of years ago. You've got such spectacular landscapes, such spectacular outdoor activities that are available. That we really think that there should be a kind of new type of hospitality product that's not, luxury tented camp, but is more like, kind of community of renegade spirits who go and meet up in the desert around a campfire and stay in these fun little pods and then go out, kite surfing in the morning or, doing mountain biking across the desert. That's the kind of thing we're really interested in. We're interested in kind of communal activities, sports activities, and adventure activities for people to really kind of get together and have real human interactions and real human conversations.
Yeah, yeah. And, it goes back to like that original treehouse you did. I mean, so part of that is less about the architecture and then putting in a program. It's more about, okay, this is like a unique experience. A guy zip lining down and, being able to, uh, pull a basket up and down a tree. It's an experience. And then you're kind of shaping architecture around to accommodate that. And I think lots of times we come in and we put a building or like, now utilize it. Where more people want, a place to hang around a campfire and be able to connect with friends and have these experiences. And so how do you softly come around that and create spaces to do it?
I obviously I'm building my own one here, which I'm paying for myself. So I'm building a kind of ecological bamboo mountain in southern Mauritius. So I've already got
What's the one you're doing now? Let's hop to that.
oh, I
And
have
you got
no
one
idea
here in
sure is it.
Utah.
That was in Utah. Yeah, that was a great tent design. Unfortunately, that hasn't gone forward yet. The funding was a little bit difficult to get. But that's on the edge of Zion National Park,
Oh yeah, I love Zion.
right? And that's you see when I'm talking about the US, there are places in the US I really like. So
Yeah,
we designed these kind of special tents, solar powered tents for these guys, directly overlooking the West Temple, incredible site. And we still got that design sitting on it there somewhere to do, but this was big. That was 65 square meters. So, what I think is missing in the US environment is you've got things like Under Canvas, which are
yeah.
quite conventional products, and you've
Do you
got
know Sarah?
AutoCamp.
Uh, that
Yeah, Sarah Dusek. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I had her on a couple of weeks ago. She's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah, she's great. And she's got some incredible stories about,
yeah,
things blowing away in the middle of the night and kind of total disaster. Yeah, so it's yeah, she's an extraordinary character and she's doing another fabulous project now. And
yeah. Over on y'all's
um
side of the ocean, right? It's
yeah, it's
building.
not too far from us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolute pioneer, a bit of a legend in the industry. I mean, I think really That's
Have you
quite
guys
safe to
done
say that
projects
for.
together at all with her
No,
group?
we haven't actually. I would have loved to. I think when I met her first, she was still kind of. I don't think she was entirely free from under canvas yet. Um, but so yeah, no, I haven't done anything with her, but I know her and I've met her several times at different conferences and I have huge respect for her.
Yeah. Have you met Ben Wolf? He's another friend that he's starting to do a really unique canvas camp in Florida. They did Onera, which is more hard structures, and are now kind of looking at this on in the Everglades area. Um, yeah,
I've seen him. I've seen him on Instagram. He's quite on LinkedIn and stuff. He's quite kind of vocal. He's quite good
yeah,
at
yeah. He's very good at
communicating.
Instagram. He's very
Yeah,
good at
it's great.
social. Uh, yeah.
Um, yeah, I think he's exact. For example, for me, that guy's on the kind of frontier pioneer of this kind of experience. There was another guy who made a kind of Star Wars style thing in the desert somewhere. I also thought that had some legs on it as an
Oh yeah.
idea. It's just even if you even if you don't necessarily like it, the simple calculation. This is kind of an interesting topic, right? So the simple calculation. If you said, okay, let's say I'm going to focus just on people who like Star Wars, right? You have a pretty big niche there alone, right? So what we believe is that AI and Claude and all these crazy technologies are going to change the way that people basically book experiences, right?
Mm.
Um, so our guess is that people are already asking Claude, can you do an itinerary for me to go on a yoga retreat to Sri Lanka, right? They're already doing that.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
so the question is like, well, at some point, the algorithm or your little Claude friend or whatever you want to call it, it's probably not your friend, but it pretends to, will know you better, pretty well, maybe even better than you yourself or your wife. It'll know your preferences to such an extent that it will be able to give you uncannily accurate recommendations of the kind of places you'd like to stay. And then you get into this thing of creating resorts for specific activities. So we had a guy who contacted us from Tulum, and he said, he was kind of a butch guy. I'm not going to try and do his voice, but he's like, I want to do a kind of micro resort specifically for people who do MMA. And I was like, well, you might have got the wrong address here. Are you sure you went to our website? But no, he wasn't. He was actually pretty serious. And then his argument for it was actually pretty cool. He was like, oh no, it wasn't just MMA, it was MMA and CrossFit. I don't know if those guys, tussle with each other or
Okay.
whatever.
Yeah.
But it was not a bad theory, right? Because if you think of all of those people who do CrossFit, that's a pretty strong community already,
Yeah.
and if you created an environment specifically for CrossFit enthusiasts, I reckon you wouldn't have too hard a time filling something like that up.
Yeah, there's a joke about CrossFit guys. How do you know if somebody does CrossFit?
It's the same as somebody who went to Cambridge. They'll tell you in the first 5 minutes of the conversation.
I tell you, right? It's like, that's a crowd that loves their sport, and when you're in it, you're in it. And you're gonna hear about it. So it's interesting to think about. Like traditionally, when you go and design a resort, you've had to think generically. How are we gonna accommodate all of these different classes of people and differences and interests. And we live in a world now where, you're right. There's 9 billion people. And if we thought about, what are the, 1,000 that are going to be, absolutely, love and interested in this thing. And how do we create something that's super, you know, fits that? There's actually the ability to, you know, to market to those people, to create, to have people, we're able to travel around the world easier. And it opens up the opportunity to think more unique about, the spaces and the places that we're creating. So, very interesting thought.
Yeah, we did a kite surfing camp here in Mauritius. It's on one of the top kite surfing spots in the world. And that also, has a very strong following. Those guys, like to hang out with other people who do kite surfing, and they all talk about kite surfing all the time. So,
Did
a
you
lot of
did
those
you learn to kite
communities.
surf while you did the project?
I did actually in Sri Lanka. I learned to kite surf, but unfortunately, I
Ah,
had a problem with my back. Now
okay.
my daughter kite surfs though, but yeah, no, I had to stop doing that because of an injury.
Oh man. Yeah. Well, do you make it out? We have the glamping show here in Colorado, and a lot of the events, special, unique, designs come to that. Have you ever come to that, or have you ever, made it to
Yeah,
Colorado?
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah. The glamping show crew are good friends of mine, Karen and Billy.
fantastic.
Oh, but actually in the US it's a little bit different. It's a slightly different organization. I think it's
Yeah.
called Michael. Yeah, so I came and spoke a few years ago. It was a while
Okay.
ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I came and did a quick, rather technical talk about the kind of technical side of tented camps, which is pretty boring for most people, I think. So nobody threw anything at me, so I think it went reasonably okay.
Yeah. Well, I hope it gets back on your radar. I'd love to connect with you if you make it out here to Colorado. It'd be fun to, yeah, grab a lunch and chat. Seems like, the work that you're doing is incredible. It'd be fun to find a way to collaborate a little bit. If people want to work with you on specific projects, who are you looking for? Who would be kind of the right uh, client for you, and how would they connect?
Okay, so one of the things that I really am looking for is I'm looking for people with really cool pieces of land with great adventure sports potential for this kind of nomadic escapes launch, which we're just, you know, fully about to launch, because we are looking for people ideally who'd have some finance but would be looking to raise some capital, but really kind of iconic locations to do a tented camp. And then they could reach out to me, Louis Thompson, Louis at nomadicresorts.com, or to Ashley Bole, who's in LA. And she's really actively looking for landowners or people who want to do a fairly luxury tented camp for our new brand, Nomadic Escapes.
Love it. Well, if you have something out there that you think would be perfect for him, reach out to Lewis. He's got some amazing work. I think he would come up with something incredibly creative. If you have something in Colorado, reach out to me first, and then I'll call Lewis, and we'll partner on a project. How about that?
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Well, Lewis, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks for sharing your work. Thanks for the inspired work that you're doing, and not just putting out more white boxes out there. The world needs more of this. And thanks for reaching out. It's great to connect.
Thanks, Zeke. It was a pleasure to be on. And
All
good
right.
luck with the next stage of your journey.
I appreciate it. It's a long journey, but it's fun. I keep learning every time. And yeah, it's good to, see other guys and get inspired by it. So let's go make something cool.